They call me a line item to be erased before lunch. My name is Victor Alvarez. I'm 48, and until the morning this story begins, I ran business development at Ramsey Fabrication and Supply on the east side of Houston. For 18 years, I was the guy people called when a refinery line went down at midnight or when a ship fitter in Galveston needed a pallet of ASTM-certified plate steel before dawn. I knew what our customers built, who their foremen were, which inspectors would balk at which tolerances, and which plant managers answered their phones on the first ring. You're an expensive burden, Victor. That's what Evan Cole told me from behind a mahogany desk you could have parked a Buick on. He leaned back, thumbs hooked in a navy vest, and gave me the kind of smile people practice in mirrors when they want to look gracious and end a conversation at the same time. 2 associate reps out of our new graduate program can cover your book for half the cost. My hands were flat on my knees. I kept my voice even. We don't sell software subscriptions, Evan. We sell trust and steel that doesn't crack under pressure. He tapped a spreadsheet on the screen. We sell margin. Security is going to escort you so this stays clean. I didn't argue. I didn't flip his desk. I stood, shook the hand he offered, and walked the same corridor I'd walked since I was 30 with a single cardboard box tucked under my arm. A photo of my wife and boys at the Kima Boardwalk, my coffee mug from a 2011 offshore safety conference, a paperweight my younger son had cast in a Cub Scouts kit, glitter suspended in yellow resin like confetti frozen midair. People looked up as I passed. Rosa in pricing bit her lip and stared down at her keyboard. Benny from the yard lifted a hand and then put it down. Dana, my assistant for the last 9 years, stood a little too quickly and knocked over a stapler. Security kept a polite distance like ushers at a wedding. In the elevator, I saw my reflection in stainless steel. I didn't look angry. I looked tired, the way you look at the end of a hurricane season when the air is still hot and you've hammered the last piece of plywood back onto the shed. I thought of Mr. Ramsey, the founder, and the way he would point a crooked finger and say, "We shake hands here, son. We don't hide behind forms." He'd said that to me the week he hired me, when the company had 26 people and 1 forklift that stalled if you breathed on it wrong. The security guard cleared his throat as the door slid open. "I'm supposed to take your badge, Mr. Alvarez." I unclipped it and dropped it into his palm. "You can keep the lanyard," he offered, like a consolation prize. I almost laughed. Out in the parking lot, the heat was doing that thing Houston heat does in late summer, pressing down without moving. I set the box on the passenger seat, climbed into my truck, and sat there with the AC blowing hard enough to rattle a receipt in the cup holder. My phone buzzed before I could turn the key. Caroline Wu, Bayfront Constructors. "Vic, tell me the rumor isn't true." "Which rumor?" I asked, though I already knew which. "Ramsey let you go." "They did." Silence hummed over the line, followed by the sound of Caroline blowing out a breath. "That's the dumbest business decision I've heard since a subcontractor used non-rated bolts on a hospital expansion." "Who fired you? The one with the haircut or the one with the half MBA?" "The haircut," I said. "Figures," she muttered. "Listen, before I called you, I called the main line. Some kid telling me to put my issue in a portal so we can track the service event. I don't need a service event. I need 4 truckloads of 316L that meet the spec sheet I sent 3 weeks ago." "I don't work there anymore, Caroline." "I know, Victor. That's why I'm calling you. What should I do?" I paused. 18 years of habit tugged at my hands. "Give me 20 minutes. I hung up and dialed Benny direct. He answered on the second ring. "Alvarez, don't hang up. Bayfront's getting the wrong alloy. You've got a picking error. If that goes on a pipe rack, the inspector will rip them a new one." Benny swore softly. "We've got a new system. Tickets in a queue. By the time a ticket hits you, they'll have missed their window. Look at the last pick list from Bayfront. You'll see it." A minute passed with the sound of paper and a keyboard. "Son of a, you're right. Send your best driver. Call me when the truck leaves." "Victor, they shouldn't have done you like that. Just fix the pick." I called Caroline. "Truck's on the way. You're a saint." She paused. "You're not going to land somewhere and forget us little people, are you?" "I don't forget people." She laughed once, not happy. "Somebody at Ramsey did." By sundown, the phone had rung 9 more times. Frank at North Channel Rigging. Anna from Pelican Wharf Ship. Raoul at Edison Petrochem. The conversations had the same shape. "Is it true?" Followed by, "This is a problem." Followed by, "I don't want to deal with a bot reading from a script when my inspector is on the ladder." I did not ask for anyone's business. I didn't gripe about Ramsey. I took notes with a pen on an old legal pad and said, I'm around if you need a human. At home, Elena was at the stove, stirring something that smelled like cumin and tomatoes. She looked at my empty lanyard before she looked at my face. So it happened. It did. She turned off the burner and wrapped her arms around my ribs. You told me 6 months ago you saw it coming. I hoped I was wrong. You're never wrong about people, she said, then drew back and patted my cheek. Unfortunately, we ate at the kitchen counter because that's where we've always eaten when the day has been longer than it needed to be. Our eldest, Mateo, texted from Dallas a photo of a calculus problem that looked like modern art. Our younger boy, Nico, did his homework at the table and glanced at me like something had shifted in the air and he wasn't sure if it was good or bad. That night I took out the old metal toolbox my father left me. I don't fix much with it. There are better tools now, but I like how it sounds when it opens. I put the legal pad inside, closed the lid, and slept as if someone had turned a key and wound me down to zero. What Evan didn't understand, and what I was starting to understand in the kind of way that makes your shoulders drop from your ears, was this: spreadsheets are guesses. A handshake is data. The calls continued. Not panicked. Construction people don't panic, but tight. My favorite was from a superintendent named Big Ernest, a man who insists on telling me the humidity reading at every job site he runs. Victor, the new boy at Ramsey, told me to allow 2 to 4 business days for a reply. Did you tell him your crane operator runs on business days, too, and just parks the boom until he hears back? I told him something, Ernest said dryly. By Wednesday, I wasn't leaving my kitchen table until dusk. I'd made a rule for myself. I wasn't going to lose my dignity by begging people to follow me into a future I hadn't built yet. I would simply answer the phone, solve what I could from the sidelines, and see who valued what. On Thursday, Dana called from her personal phone. He posted your job. With a new title and a lower salary? She snorted. Customer success lead. Wants 3, actually. Rotational trainees from the university program. Also, he told the team to stop giving out personal numbers. All communications in the portal. Because nothing says we care like a 17-digit ticket number. You know what the worst part is? She asked. When Mr. Ramsey was here, he'd walk the yard and ask if anyone's kid had a birthday. Evan put the shop floor on keycard access. I closed my eyes. Thanks for telling me. Keep your head down. Too late for that, she said, and hung up. The first job offer wasn't really an offer. It was a question disguised as one. Miguel Ortiz runs a mid-sized structural outfit on the ship channel. He doesn't waste syllables. You landing somewhere? Not yet. If you land at a supplier that answers the phone after 5, call me. I'll bring my POs with me. I stared out at the pecan tree in our yard and watched a squirrel skitter along the fence rail. You know I can't ask you to move accounts. I know, he said. And I know the difference between asking and telling. I'm telling. Word in our industry travels faster than a thunderhead. By the following week, the trade paper hinted Ramsey had lost 2 long-time accounts. Another friend texted me a photo of a whiteboard inside Ramsey's glass fishbowl of a conference room, a list of retention targets circled in red like names on a hit list. Evan's mistake wasn't that he misunderstood me. It's that he misunderstood the people who trusted me. He thought I was a cost center. I was a switchboard, connecting names to names, problems to solutions. When you cut a switchboard out of a network, the phones don't ring less. They go dead. The call that changed everything came on a rainy Tuesday when the clouds sat on the beltway like they'd paid for the seats. Mr. Alvarez? This is Rebecca Cho with Orion Forge. I knew who they were. The Dallas outfit with deep pockets, modern equipment, and an appetite that had been growing from rumor to reality. They'd bid on a couple of projects down here, but hadn't broken through. Not yet. We have a problem, she said. With me? I asked, because it was a reflex to take weight out of a conversation. With our Houston plan, she said, unbothered by my deflection. We mapped a 2-year timetable to enter your market. Then someone sent me a clip of your exit interview with Ramsey. I didn't do one. She laughed under her breath. Fair enough. They sent me the rumor, then. And 3 of your former customers emailed me inside of a week asking who to call if you were here. I don't believe in coincidences, Mr. Alvarez. I believe in timing. You're asking me to come to Dallas. I'm asking you to come to Houston under our name. We met the next day at a coffee shop that still smelled like the paint was drying. Rebecca was younger than I expected and sharper around the edges. She introduced me to her operations chief, a man named Lang who wore a polo and the expression of someone who could perform a cut list in his head without looking down. "We don't need you to poach anyone," she said before the cappuccino had cooled. "I wouldn't ask you to, and I wouldn't hire anyone who thought that was their job. What we need is the part of you that knows when to drive a pallet across town at 1 a.m. because a weld failed and the inspector has a temper. We need your judgment encoded into how we serve people." In return, I asked. "Vice President of Client Partnerships," she said, sliding a folder across the table. 30% up from whatever Ramsey told you cost them. A modest equity grant because I expect you to build something that lasts. Headcount to hire your kind of people. And the authority to make a promise at 2 a.m. without waiting for an approval chain. I flipped the folder open and scanned the numbers, the vesting timeline, the clauses written by lawyers who knew what commas cost. Then I closed it and looked at her. "Why me? Apart from the rumor mill." Rebecca didn't blink. "My grandfather built a machine shop in Garland and thought he'd die there. When a larger firm bought him out, they kept his machines and fired his phone book. The new owners declared victory because the lights still turned on. 6 months later, they wondered why the orders had stopped. My family hasn't forgotten that. We hire the phone book and build the machines around it." "Do you understand what Houston is?" I asked. "It's not a clone of Dallas." "I understand you do," she said. "That's good enough." I told her I'd give her an answer the next day. Then I went home, pulled the metal toolbox onto the kitchen table, opened it, and set the folder on top of the legal pad. Elena dried her hands and leaned over my shoulder. "Is that what I think it is?" she asked. "It's an exit," I said. She kissed my temple. "It's a beginning." Before I said yes, I made 3 calls. To Caroline, to Miguel, and to a man named Charles who can procure things that technically don't exist, yet if you give him sufficient warning. Hypothetically, I told each of them, if I and Forge had a phone number, would you ever call it? Caroline laughed. "You want the polite answer or the true one?" "The true one." "I would call your number," she said. "If it happens to be registered to a company that treats us like people, even better." Miguel was shorter. "If you pick up, I pick you." Charles sent a text. "Send me a general email. I'll forward it to people who need a general email." Then he added a second text I read 3 times before I believed it. "Heard Ramsey lost Avondale. 20 million. Evan is toast." I accepted Rebecca's offer at 9:00 for the next morning. By noon, I and Forge leased a small suite off the East Freeway and hired a receptionist who'd worked the phones at a crane rental outfit and could separate tire kickers from crisis calls in 2 sentences flat. By Friday, I had badges for 3 people. Rosa from Ramsey's pricing team, who deserved a leader who knew what her work saved. A young project coordinator named Jamal, who'd grown up working in his uncle's welding shop and could translate between drawings and reality, and myself. On Monday, we hung a modest sign. I and Forge, Houston's service hub. We didn't blast it on social media. We didn't run an ad with a bald eagle and a flag. We called people back faster than anyone expected. We wrote quotes that were correct the first time. We told the truth when a promise would have been cheap and a lie would have been expensive. And we kept a whiteboard of names in the back room. Not customers, people. Who their kids were, which foreman was allergic to mango, which plant had a safety manager who would shut the gate for a loose scrap on a sidewalk. The first proposal we wrote was not for Bayfront and not for Miguel. It was for a hospital addition on the north side where the GC had been burned by delays and needed a vendor who didn't submit a price and disappear. We listed the conventional items and then included a page called Unconventional Expectations, who we'd call when the site crew discovered the plan reader was wrong, where we'd stage overflow to avoid blocking the ambulance loop. What we'd do the first time a pick list was missing a 0. It wasn't slick. It was sane. Meanwhile, Dana sent me the occasional text from inside the slow-moving wreck. "You didn't hear it from me, but 2 more walk today. Evan says it's market headwinds. The interns are nice kids. They're terrified. They've put a timer on every call. 3 minutes to resolution. You can feel the panic." I didn't respond to most of them. What could I say? She knew what I knew. You can't timebox trust. 3 weeks into my new life, Caroline called instead of emailing for the West Docks project. "We're putting our biggest job of the year out for bid," she said. 48 weeks, complex sequencing, 0 room for excuse letters. Ramsey, of course, We'll submit. But I want yours. You know we're new in Houston. You're not, she said. You just changed the name on your coffee mug. We wrote the proposal. We didn't lowball. We didn't overpromise. We added a page called If Something Goes Wrong and put my cell number on it because if you're not willing to do that, you don't mean what you say. The night before we sent it, I lay awake and stared at the ceiling fan and remembered a job from 9 years earlier. A marine terminal expansion on a Friday in August when the air over the water was so hot the horizon looked like a mirage. A weld cracked during a pressure test. The foreman called me, not a portal. I called Benny, not a timer. We fixed it because adults talk like adults. I fell asleep thinking we might not win this job, but if we lost, it wouldn't be because we forgot what business we were in. We won. It wasn't just us. It was the accumulation of 1,000 minor hurts dealt by a company that stopped listening. Caroline told me in the most Caroline way possible, you cost a hair more, and your service costs a lot less. The same week, a rumor circulated that Ramsey lost Avondale, the one Charles had texted me about. 2 days later, it wasn't a rumor. The project manager called to ask if we had capacity to take a slice of the work. We did. We took it. We delivered. I didn't gloat. I didn't post a victory lap on LinkedIn. I bought collages for the team the next morning and wrote, "We earned this," on the whiteboard where the names lived. In March, Evan emailed Rebecca. Rebecca, I'd like to discuss a strategic arrangement to reduce destructive competition in the Houston market. We believe our companies can coexist by focusing on complementary geographies and core competencies. Best, Evan Cole, Chief Operations Officer, Ramsey Fabrication and Supply. Rebecca forwarded it with a one-line note. Your friend wants to talk. We scheduled a video meeting. Evan arrived with 2 men I didn't recognize, a corporate counsel and a finance lead, by the looks of the haircuts. Rebecca and Lang signed in. I joined last. Good afternoon, I said. Evan blinked. His jaw tightened just enough to register. Victor. Mr. Cole, I said. What followed would have looked civil to anyone who didn't understand the context. Evan proposed a non-aggression framework. Rebecca asked how a framework solved a service problem. Evan referenced recent market volatility. I said, markets weren't volatile when I showed up at job sites in the rain. They were messy, which is different. He pivoted to a pitch. Ramsey is willing to bring you back as SVP of sales. Full authority to restructure the team. We can't undo the past, but we can correct course. I looked into the camera and said the most honest sentence I had, which was also the simplest. I'm where I belong. He tried once more. We'll match your current compensation and... It's not the money, I said. For a flicker of a second, the performance dropped from his face. I saw the man inside the vest, the one who was watching a scoreboard and finally realizing the numbers were real. The call ended with platitudes. Let's keep the lines open. Appreciate the dialogue. We all clicked, leave meeting. I sat for a second staring at the Orion logo, and then went to the back room and erased a smudge someone had drawn next to Caroline's name. 3 weeks later, the story hit the trade paper's front page. Ramsey cuts 40% of staff, COO out after client exodus. The article was merciless in the way that sober reporting can be. It quoted a letter from West Docks Development, Caroline's company, to Ramsey's board, explaining their decision to terminate a long-standing relationship. The letter didn't mention my name. It didn't have to. It listed the things that matter: answered calls, familiarity with projects, accountability. The board had launched an internal review. The review had found a lot of spreadsheets and not enough people willing to pick up a phone. Dana called from a different number. They let him go, she said without preamble. Are you okay? I asked. I am now. She hesitated, then laughed in a way that sounded like crying. I started Orion in 2 weeks, if your offer still stands. It does, I said. Always did. Ramsey sold its assets at a discount that summer. The forklifts went to a competitor. The yard leases went to a developer who'd rather park container chassis than stack steel. A handful of good people landed at places that still believed human beings outperform procedures in the long run. A handful left the industry altogether. Evan updated his profile with a consultant title in a different state and a list of buzzwords longer than a grocery receipt. A friend told me he was interviewing at a firm that made dashboards for executives who didn't like walking the floor. Maybe he'll be good at that. Maybe he'll learn to spell relationship without rolling his eyes. I don't know. I don't wish him harm. I wish him humility. Here's how it ended for me, which is really a story about how it continued. We kept saying yes and meaning it. We hired interns, but we didn't hand them the keys to a ship they didn't know how to sail. We paired them with people who'd sat in hot pickup trucks at sites and learned what welders swear at. We paid on time and expected the same. We put names on our whiteboard and didn't wipe them off when a project ended. We hosted a crawfish boil in our parking lot in May and invited the guy from the city who stamps the permits. Because he's a person too, and it turns out people like being treated like that. I drove past Ramsey's old building one evening with Elena in the passenger seat. The Felice banner fluttered a little where the wind caught it high on the brick. The glass still reflected the freeway. If you squinted, you could almost see Mr. Ramsey walking out the door, rolling his sleeves, asking after someone's kids. Elena reached over and took my hand. "You built a thing," she said softly. "I rebuilt a thing," I corrected. "But I built it the way it should have been to start." She squeezed my fingers. "I liked you better when you came home, and you didn't smell like anger." "I smell like steel dust most days," I said. "Better than spreadsheets," she said. There was one moment I've never told anyone about because it felt small and huge at the same time. It was late, and I was alone in the office. The yellow paperweight my son made sat on the corner of my desk, glitter settled to one side. I held it up, tilted it, watched the flecks drift and resettle. It reminded me of the industry itself. Shake it, and everything looks chaotic. Give it a minute, and the pieces find a new order. The trick is to decide what you're going to hold steady while it settles. A week later, Jamal came in with a problem, the kind that deserves coffee and silence and a clean pad of paper. We worked it until it wasn't a problem anymore. He wiped his hands on his jeans and said, "Back when I was a kid at my uncle's shop, this old guy told me something. He said, machines cut and bend. People keep promises." "That old guy was smarter than most consultants," I said. He grinned. "We should put it on the wall." "We don't need it on the wall," I said. "We have it in here." I thumped my chest once, a little harder than necessary, to make sure I could still feel the thud. Let me tell you what revenge looked like for me, because people like to dress it up with fire and broken glass. Mine looked like showing up. It looked like returning calls and driving to sites and drinking terrible coffee in break rooms decorated with calendars from 2 fiscal years ago. It looked like standing quietly in a meeting while a client's architect talked through a problem and finding the sentence that solved it. It looked like turning down a comfortable job at a place that had forgotten my name and choosing a harder path at a place that said my name back to me. Evan thought 3 trainees could do my job for half the price. I hired 3 trainees and taught them how to do my job with their own names on the front. There's your math. Sometimes people ask me if I ever think about the day security walked me out with my box. I do, but not the way they expect. I think about the kindness in the guard's voice when he offered me the lanyard. I think about the way Rosa kept her eyes down because she didn't want me to see her cry. I think about my feet on the lobby tile and the weight of cardboard in my arms, and the strange sense of relief under the loss because something I loved had been turned into something I didn't recognize, and now someone had given me permission to build it back the way it worked. We didn't steal Ramsey's customers. They let them go. We didn't trash their name. We didn't need to. A rumor mill is loud. A quiet, reliable answer at 10:37 p.m. is louder where it counts. On our whiteboard right now are 52 names. Some are big companies with blue logos and stock tickers. Some are family outfits that will never get written up in a magazine. Each has a tiny note next to it. Daughter graduating in May. Prefers email in morning, calls at night. Conservative inspector, double-check mill certs. That board is our balance sheet. Rebecca jokes that our accountants don't know how to carry "gives a damn" as an asset. We carry it anyway. I don't know how your industry works. Maybe you sell code, or tickets, or ad space. Maybe you operate on thin margins and heavy volume. Maybe your tools weigh bytes instead of tons. The physics don't matter. The principle does. The people you serve cannot be reduced to a line item without the line item coming back to cut you. They called me a burden to be erased. So I erased myself from their equation and watched their numbers stop making sense. And then I did what I've always done. I picked up the phone. I learned some new names. I kept a promise. I made work for people who wanted to be proud of the thing they built. I went home without a knot between my shoulder blades and put a yellow paperweight back on a desk I get to call mine. Some values will never show up in a quarterly report. That's fine. They will show up when a storm rolls in at 3 in the morning and someone needs steel on the ground by sunrise, and you answer your phone like you've been awake the whole time. That's how you win. Not once. Over and over. Quietly. Relentlessly. Until the people who forgot remember, or they don't. You can't teach everyone. You can build with the ones who want to learn. And when someone sits across from you and says you're a cost to be cut, you'll know better. You're a bridge. You're the person who keeps promises. That is not a burden. That is the business.